Welcome to Homeschooling for Spirituality. The Flow is a delightful mix of insight, divine inspiration, and humor, where wisdom meets earthiness to help your ongoing spiritual growth and transformation. Follow the flow of enlightenment and explore everything spiritual through the deepest self-inquiry, as student Lisa Berry asks Master Spiritual Teacher G.P. Walsh the kinds of questions you would ask an elder, a wise man, or a sage, and receive direct, simple, comprehensive, and deeply human lessons and teachings. From transcending the experience of separation, releasing old conditioned patterns and wounds, and alleviating suffering, to demystifying esoteric practices and revealing one's true purpose and innate freedom. Welcome to the flow of enlightenment. Transformation is all there is.
Well, hello, everyone. Yes, welcome to the Flow of Enlightenment. You're here with G.P. Walsh and myself, Lisa Berry. And G.P., I'm going to start off today's show by sharing with people that what's really neat about the Flow of Enlightenment, and when people tune in, it's all the stuff that happens in between. It's it really is about, I feel very lucky that I get to bring questions to you, like of my own and from other people. But what's neat is that there gets to be this little bit more detail or interaction, because you have your sat songs on Sunday and they get to type in and stuff. And then we have the master classes that you do where it's super, super deep and involved. And then these ones are, I want to call them lighthearted, even though they're not exactly, but they're questions that people are literally dealing with things every day that, today's topic, I'm going to share this. It's about embarrassment, guys. It's embarrassment, who we've announced as shame's more presentable sister. And the reason why this came up to me, GP, is that a lot of people, especially the spiritual community, will talk about, shame, being a low vibration. And if we feel shame and I don't know. And then I kept thinking, like, gosh, I don't know that shame is a big thing in my life. I mean, I'm sure it has been or can be. And I thought it's more like embarrassment might be. And then you said it's, shame's more presentable sister. And so do you find that, first of all, I want to start there, is that, do you find more people connect with embarrassment and versus shame?
Well, they seem to be two different things, but they're very closely related. An embarrassment is just really a milder form, right? Right. When I show up in some way, I make a guffaw, or I do something stupid, or something I regret. There's a feeling of there can be a part of it that's a genuine recognition that, geez, I screwed up, and there's some learning that takes place, and when we experientially do something where we screw up, and learn from it, because we feel it, it tends not to happen again. It's just kind of it's a way in which we grow spiritually and morally. But then there's those other circumstances where we're just mortified. Which is one of the reasons why people are so terrified of public speaking.
Yes.
Because of that fear of being embarrassed. And if you take embarrassment and you up it a couple of notches, you get humiliation. And humiliation is just, right next to the door of shame. And let's be clear what shame is. Shame is a feeling, there's something wrong with who I am. Guilt is the feeling there's something wrong with something I did, right? But shame is existential. It's existential guilt. It's like, I'm just broken. I'm just not enough. I'm just inadequate. And the fear of confronting that, the fear of that being true, is what makes us tend to avoid circumstances where we could risk the possibility of being embarrassed, rejected, and the like. Which is why public speaking, people are more afraid of that than they are of death.
Yes.
Which is, as Jerry Seinfeld put it, that means at a funeral you'd rather be in the casket than giving the
trade places.
Whatever they call that thing. At the end, yeah. The obituary, yeah. That's when it's printed, yeah. So to come to terms with this, all embarrassment embarrassment can be quite mild, which if it's just like something stupid, you laugh and it's over. Those aren't really a problem. It's when it repeats, right? You're not actually learning from it, then there's something much deeper going on. And what we're really all afraid of is the humiliation that is shame. And shame has been, in most cultures, that has been kind of the number one weapon of control. Parents shame their children into that
you're
particular
taking my questions.
behavior. Yeah. The culture shames you into obedience.
Yes.
Anything that contrasts with the way the culture purports things are supposed to go, there's obviously nothing wrong with the culture. There's nothing wrong with, the mores as they stand. There's something wrong with you. Even if you feel like you want to resist it, even if you feel like that it doesn't make any sense. And this gets, of course, programmed into us so early on that it creates a sense of being inadequate, of not being enough, of being less than, of being second class, or third, or fourth.
As you said perfectly, it starts when we're young, and it can be little bits. And I'm just wondering if one experiences being embarrassed more often than maybe another, are they more susceptible to shame, or being shamed, or feeling shameful, or maybe they just stay at that level of nope, I just get embarrassed easily.
Well, there's no such thing. I get embarrassed easily.
Oh.
If it's a recurring thing, then there's really an underlying issue of shame, and it's not embarrassment anymore. It means that you're always attempting to put forth what the particular environment is expecting to see, and when you don't deliver it, you feel as if it's your fault. I did something wrong. Oh, did you?
Okay, this is perfect for the first question I want to ask. So this question was written in about from a person who is embarrassed about their body because she shared that it represented to her that she felt that other people judged her that you're fat because you eat the wrong things and too much, so stop doing that. So stop eating. So she feels shameful about that. So she's embarrassed about her body, and she wants to know how can she love herself and not be embarrassed and feel shamed.
Boy, that's a big one. And I say it's a big one only because there are certain parts of it, health aspects of it, that are factual, right?
Right.
And obviously, if we're carrying too much weight around, we weren't designed to do that. We were designed to be very, very lean. When you look at look at it, there are still a few hunter-gatherer tribes around the world, the Hunza Bushmen in Africa, and if you look at them, they are all just in absolutely perfect shape because they're perfectly adapted to the environment, and they're constantly responding to the environment. So their bodies, being in harmony with the environment, are exactly the way they're supposed to be. And of course, they do change as they age and that sort of stuff. But interestingly enough, even the primitive hunter-gatherers lived as long as we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they only worked, and their work week was like 20 hours.
Right.
So I'm not sure we've gotten any better off. So, if you start looking at it in terms of the effect being manifested in the body of various kinds of the environment in which you're in, and the absence of the understanding of the environment. Now it doesn't become a personal problem. Actually, you can become extremely curious. Well, why did this happen? How did this come about? Right? The body doesn't put on weight unless it's extra weight, unless it's operating outside of its normal environmental cycles. Now, it's natural for it to put on weight as it moves into winter, because it's preparing basically for a shortage of food during the winter.
Storage.
Yeah, it's storage. Now, in our world, there is no winter for all intents and purposes. The quantity of food is available constantly. So if we understand that, we can begin to adjust our behaviors accordingly and work with the body rather than against it. And you'll find that it will find an equilibrium quite nicely, quite easily. Now notice everything I'm saying here completely removes it from the realm of some kind of personal problem.
Right, yeah.
Because we were all educated this way. I mean, I grew up eating horrible stuff. Absolutely horrible.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Yeah, I mean that was the Midwest. It wasn't a meal unless it had meat in it. So there was meat, a huge thing of potatoes smothered in butter, and a couple pieces of lettuce. I mean that was it. For me, a salad was a chunk of lettuce, iceberg lettuce. I never saw leafy greens or anything like that.
no fancy arugula.
No,
Pea shoots.
I had no idea what those things were. For crying out loud, I didn't have a real taco till I moved to California. It was just amazing. And so, later on, I had to educate myself about it. I'd put on weight. I wasn't in great shape. I remember my feet smelling.
And that can be embarrassing. People get embarrassed about their feet smelling or body odor.
Yeah, that's right. We're the only critters on the planet who don't like our own smell. Isn't that strange? Yeah.
Yes.
Homo neuroticus.
Yes, exactly. That is so interesting.
So it's a matter of really taking a step back and saying, okay, what really matters to me? And yeah, people do. Because, in our world, everything is like, it's all your fault, right? Mm-hmm. It's always your fault. Nobody ever looks around and say, okay, what's the environment in which we're in? How are we all contributing to this? And unfortunately, the rise of the law of attraction and that kind of manifestation stuff has only made it worse. Oh, it's your own doing. It's the decisions you're making in your life. I mean, you can hear in that. There's no kindness in that. There's no compassion. There's no sense of us. There's no sense of let's look at this together.
Yes.
Right? It's become, it's one of my big complaints about the whole law of attraction thing. It's made us even more selfish and materialistic than we already were.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's
now,
at the heart of it.
Right. And in control and possibly being able to be blamed, which is shameful.
Yes, that's exactly the case, because it takes on the same characteristic the culture always has, which is, it's your fault. Culture never blames itself.
Yes.
A failed economic system doesn't blame itself.
Right.
That's so interesting. I love system, they don't blame themselves. Yeah. They never blame the system. It's always your fault. You screwed up.
Yeah, that word fault is so damaging. And when you're little, it's the like you said, blame, shame, but fault, because I think when you take responsibility and ownership of the way things turned out, we now know from previous shows that we aren't creating anything on our own.
Correct. Yeah.
So which is perfect timing for this next question that came in, and we could continue it after the commercials if we go into it. But you just literally talked about money, and the next question was about bankruptcy. How to get over the feeling of shame when you let your family down, when you've claimed bankrupt. Gone through bankruptcy and lost everything, and now your whole family is in a situation, and you feel very shameful.
Right, or you go bankrupt enough time and then you get elected president of the United States. I mean...
yeah, that can go really two ways, can't it?
First off, look at where it came from. Traditionally, in many cultures, I think even in the Jewish culture, there was a thing called the Jubilee. And it was every 7 years. And every 7 years, everybody's debts were forgiven. Boom.
Oh.
Everything just started over.
That's why bankruptcy is 7 years.
That's why bankruptcy is 7 years. That's where it originated.
My gosh.
That's where it originated from. It is an antidote to what happened during the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, where you would go to prison. You couldn't pay your debts. You went to debtor's prison. And depending on how big the debt was, would depend on how long you were going to be in prison. And so the bankruptcy laws came into. They were very humane. They go, no, nobody should go to prison because the money ran out.
Yeah.
Right? We'll figure out an equitable way for as much as they have. We give it to their creditors. We let them off the hook, and they can start fresh. That was the whole point of it.
Okay.
And so there's absolutely no shame in it at all. Look, everybody screws up.
Yes, and things go bad. Yeah.
Things go bad. Things completely out of your control. Think about all the small businesses that will never open their doors again because of COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't do anything to bring that on themselves.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, what in the world happens? I mean, it's like we have to stop this idea of thinking that I'm the creator of everything, my success is my own and I'm really great. Pat myself on the back like a Jeff Bezos or something. And of course, if I fail, then it's all my fault, right? It's not any of that. We live as a group. We are interrelated. There's an environment involved, and you can't ignore that. It isn't just me; it's we. We am, not just I am. And so to take that into your heart makes you realize that the only reason you mess up is because you've misread the environment. That's all.
Oh, I like that.
That's it. That's the only thing that's happened. Because of our prejudices, or we're just naive, or something we weren't aware of. Things happened in such a way that it made it almost inevitable that it would go that way. And none of it was a personal failing. None of it.
Oh, I love that. Okay, let's go to commercial on that one because I love that. It's not a personal failing. That was beautiful. All right, everybody, come on back to the flow of enlightenment, and we're gonna clear all these debts.
That's right.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Touch, move, and inspire. Sharing your story of how you overcame your deepest struggle will serve as someone else's survival guide. You are ready to get the book out of your head and onto the page. I'm Jocelyn Bellows, host of Breakdown to Wake Up, a live stream show dedicated to sharing personal journeys of men and women who have traversed through mazes of uncertainty, dark clouds, and dishonoring themselves, and the lessons they have learned along this path of what one can accomplish in our own self-discovery. And as a writing and life coach, I work with men and women to break through the BS of their lives to find their own voice and leaping into a life they love. It is my belief that when we share our stories of how we overcame what we have been through, it will serve as someone else's survival guide. So if you're ready to get the book out of your head and onto the page, I'd love to hear from you. Go to www.jocelynbellows.com and join me every Tuesday at noon Eastern and Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern.
If I could be you,
and you could be me for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back, everyone, to the flow of enlightenment. And I'm loving this flow. I feel like so many people can just, if they can embrace this messaging that you're saying, GP, let's look at this together. And it's not a personal failure. Let's take a step back and ask what matters to me and see how the environment is working with you. And I'm glad that commercial just came on about walking a mile in my shoes, because people can feel left out. And that's, they're embarrassed. They're like, well, I'm unwanted. They didn't pick me. They don't want me. They don't like me. I'm different. Are we coming back to the whole tribe thing and living? Because if we're not chosen, we won't have a tribe and then we'll die. Could we die of embarrassment this way?
Well, the dying of embarrassment actually has its roots in that disconnection from the group, from the tribe. Because it was true that your chances of survival, if you were rejected by the tribe, in all species, not just human beings, all species that were predominantly pack animals, that was the case. The likelihood of you surviving if you were shunned was extremely small, and so there's just kind of an inbuilt survival mechanism that makes you conform to what it is. The alpha male, beats up the other guy, right? Yeah. The challenger, gets beat, or the alpha male gets beat, and the challenger takes their place. They don't skulk off into the bushes; they just take on that particular role. So it's a very primitive thing that's going on that gives it a sting that in our modern day it doesn't actually deserve. But that's just the underlying association that has been made, that once that's clear that that's what's going on, you can begin the process of divorcing the everyday kind of little faux pas we make from that intense sense of humiliation. Because that's at the essence of the humiliation. Is shame, is the fear of death, but that we don't have any fear of death. That is, we don't have any real threat. None of these things are a real threat, right? But that association has to be made clear consciously, and then disassociated, and that disassociation of it throughout the nervous system is what gives us freedom from it.
That is very good to understand those two. And because people really think, no, I really feel like I will die if this happens. But and they go,
that's right. I just want to melt into the earth.
Yes. Can I please be that wallflower? No. I'm blending two questions, three different scenarios that people wrote in about. And I'm going to call it hiding. Because they're embarrassed. So one of them was about, if their house they're not living the way they want to because they're embarrassed. So their house isn't as clean as they like it. They had some skin discoloration disorders and stuff. Or somebody, and I know it sounds trivial, but these are real things. But clothes. Somebody is embarrassed about their wardrobe. And so I kind of wrap that around that we're embarrassed of how we are presenting ourselves. And so therefore we want to hide and we're not living the way we want to. How can we, I want to say overcome that. I mean, if that's the wardrobe you have, that's the wardrobe you have. And, that's a tough cookie to swallow.
Yes. Yes, it is. And what it is we're always comparing ourselves to others. That's the nature of the egoic mind.
Yes.
Again, it has primitive roots in it. Because there was always some kind of a relationship between all the people, at least in the male side. On the female side, it was very different. On the male side, there was a tendency to have a hierarchy, right? In most pack animals like us. And so when I feel as if I'm kind of not measuring up to whatever the cultural standard is, there's going to be a personal sense that it's my fault. Again, we need to question the standards. For women, the standard of beauty is absolutely absurd. It is purposely beyond what any human woman actually looks at like, because they want to instill this guilt and shame. They want to trigger that guilt and shame in every woman so that they will be buying their products and their clothes and their cosmetics and all of their stuff, right?
Yes.
With the feeling of trying to look better. And so, these hopelessly, photoshopped images, perfect women and things like that. And that's the whole point of it. And notice none of that has any. Nothing in that takes in account the character, the spirituality, the intelligence, the wisdom, the experience. But as Picasso put it, lovers and artists know the beauty of imperfection. The uniqueness gets lost in that. There's a homogeneity in that. Homogeneity? Don't know what the word. But we're trying to make everybody the same, and you'll see that, right? There were 12 million elected plastic surgery, cosmetic surgeries done last year.
Yes.
12 million.
12 million.
Mostly women, but also a lot of men. I'm seeing more and more and more and more ads focusing men on their appearance. More and more products coming out about that. It used to be you could just be ruggedly handsome, which meant homely, but it was okay for a guy.
Yes. You know what's so interesting about that stat? I remember, and this, I'm being very honest here, as a woman and trying to live up to those standards that are impossible and feeling all the things that I felt growing up. And I remember when I first started hearing that men were getting, starting to do these things as well. And at first I was like, well, thank God, now they know how we feel, right? I was actually embraced it like, yeah that's right. Yeah, you get those wrinkles fixed and you do that because they're hideous. I was like, because it was more like I was angry that I was like, well, finally you get to feel this. But I'm not that way at all anymore. But it's so interesting how misery loves company in that strange way. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to be embarrassed, you are too. And then and the whole goal was that we both, male and females, would not be shamed and embarrassed. Not that we'd all be as shamed and embarrassed together.
Yeah, let's all get in that boat. That makes a lot of sense. The cosmetic industry would love it. They'd love it,
Yes.
Double the market.
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem is that the image we hold now is so out of whack with what human beings are really like that we no longer actually appreciate the genuine beauty of the human body.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It cuts us off from diversity, from the subtleties, from the way energy expresses itself in the body. And it makes people ashamed of themselves because they don't look like that. And that nothing in the culture is teaching them what is the beauty of what's actually here. Oh, I can't see that. And that's how blind we become. We begin to see through that lens so consistently that we don't believe there's actually another way of looking at it, that you can't see beauty in something like that.
Correct.
That's why I really love the artists that do these kind of grotesque things, and where there's this one side I like, deviant art. I really like it.
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Because it is a celebration. It's trying to break through the insanity of the tiny little definition of beauty and value that we've created, and it's based on money. It is based on commerce as the guiding force. Anything to make you buy stuff. So it has no interest in your sense of self-respect or your sense of value or making you feel better about yourself. And it's exactly the opposite. It's all made to make you feel bad about yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Hideous.
I'm going to laugh because if anybody is on your Facebook page there or in the private group, which is GP Walsh Spiritual Teacher group, so please everybody request to be in that group. It's fun and so many good things are shared. Especially this one thing which you shared, which was your picture of your beautiful curly afro-like hair. And I'm saying this because I have very curly hair, and I didn't hate it, but I've always was frustrated because I'm always forever straightening it because I don't know if somebody told me it or I just felt it, but I thought, I have a gigantic head. And that's what I kept believing because it was my hair on my head, not my head. And so this really became a thing for me. I was very embarrassed, always putting scarves around it and hiding it and straightening it. And I burned myself all the time. Like, it was just like this. And heaven forbid it was going to rain because, my gosh, now all that, I'm going to melt, after midnight, Cinderella's gone. And it was such an embarrassing thing to me. And the shame and I won't be accepted and the boys won't like me or this or that or I can't have that hair so it really wasn't. I can see what you're saying is that we weren't celebrating our uniqueness. And I love that you said celebrate the way energy expresses itself in the body. Yeah. That is absolutely beautiful when it comes to embarrassment and shame. If we could actually just hold that, celebrate the way the energy is being expressed in the body, through the body. I love that.
Spiritual self-inquiry reveals not only the oneness, but the uniqueness.
Oh.
The oneness manifested in an individual. The entire universe is made manifest in every single individual.
Oh.
It is not the oneness that you disappear into that. The ego disappears. But what gets liberated is the human self, the human character, the human body, the human entity is liberated by understanding your oneness with all things, your interrelatedness with all things. You find that you are the totally unique manifestation of the infinite beingness.
Ooh. That sounds like you just eliminated all embarrassment and shame, literally, with that.
Literally, yes.
And once we just even begin self-inquiry, and I love that you asked earlier, and I wrote it down. I love that about taking a step back and asking what matters to me. Do we first need to find out who we are, who am I, to know what matters to us, or does that happen? Is that part of the journey? Asking what matters to me is part of self-inquiry.
To me, that's the ultimate. Obviously, the more I know who I am, the more what matters to me is going to be authentic and therefore reliable. Right? Anybody can ask it at any period of time because what it is it is a starting of an inquiry. It may not be a non-dual inquiry into your existential nature, but if you start looking at that, you're going to begin sorting out what really matters to me and what has simply been culturally imposed.
Okay.
And that's a discernment we all need to make because most of us are out there pursuing things that have been culturally installed in us. The desire for success, at the root of desire for success is something very genuine in every human being. There's a desire for growth and freedom, and at the root of it is a desire for self-expression. But that has been distorted by the culture, which grabbed control of what success means, and it means you have fulfilled all of the rules and accomplishments that the culture says is good for you. Right? So I've got the good job, and I got the house and the family and everything, and I hate my life.
Yeah.
There's this feeling that's like, this isn't my life. I don't like this job. But there's also this feeling of being stuck because you're educated to be that. You've taken all of these steps. You've done all the right things. You now have all the rewards. And now you've got all the obligations going along with those rewards. And you feel like you're in a prison. It's like it's suddenly, that's the midlife crisis. It's like, wait a minute. What happened? There's no room for me in here. That's an awakening. That's a very powerful awakening if somebody can make use of that. And I think we're living in a world where more and more people are having to make use of that because the structures of the culture are no longer trustworthy. The humans have been abandoned in favor of profit.
Yes. It right there, what you said, I was imagining, a person, getting all the things that they need, the job and this, and then realizing like I have everything and yet I hate my life. I'm unhappy. To me, that almost feels like unhappiness is worse than shame.
No.
No.
Because unhappiness will lead you to find the cause and the cure.
Right. That's where you had that twist.
Keeps you stuck. Shame wants to blame you. Because there's something essentially wrong with you. That's why it is the way it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. Shame is existential. You're the mess, not the circumstances, not decisions, not the environment, you. And it's because you are flawed. You are broken. And there's nothing you can do about it because that's what you are. So it all gets blamed on you, and it is the most powerful weapon for conformity.
Okay. I know we're going to go to commercial, but I have to say this because I thought it was really cute. It's kind of like I heard you say, well, unhappy. It's knowing that it's not you and it's not aligned for you and not who you are.
Yes.
Okay. That's going on the t-shirt.
That might not be easy to swallow, right?
Right.
Because we've invested so much in this.
Yes.
This is going to, and it hasn't. And the just whole momentum of a life heading in a direction that you now know is absolutely futile. How do I get out of this car?
Yes. How? I love that.
How do I get off this train?
Yeah. How to, and I'll know how when I know who I am. And on that, let's sneak away to commercial, then we'll come back and, I love this. We're just melting everything away around embarrassment. Thank you.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
All right. I feel like the flow of enlightenment is actually all these answers and helpfulness, and I love the self-inquiry journey with you, GP. We've still got a few more questions that I said I would ask on air here. All right, going into a heavier one. They're all heavy, but yes, what I think is kind of heavy. I've lumped these two together again, but they probably are very separate. So you can choose to pull them apart. One of them was around having had a criminal life and have done their time, and now they're out. They're like having a regular life and they've really changed and everything. However, it's about two things. It was a twofold part is, do they have embarrassment a little bit around still sharing their past, revealing their past, or just themselves in their hearts, knowing that they feel bad about what they've done, even though they've done the quote unquote jail time. They still are serving heart jail time.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people that are in that jail who never went to jail.
Oh, yeah,
and
heart jail.
Somebody got caught. Somebody recognized their mistake, and I bet everybody's had the experience of suddenly having a memory of something you did 20 years ago and you shudder.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. One of the things I teach in when I do the inner reconciliation coach training, for tapping, for meridian tapping, is dealing with vows. Oh. It's a very powerful. It is the most powerful energetic assumption that we can make. Just imagine saying, "I can't have that," and really believing that. Right? I can't have something. I can't do something. I'm not enough. And switching it over to, I will not have it. I will not allow myself to have it. I will not be that. That is a vow. And we make these vows at times. And all of the punishment in the world won't undo it. Somebody who has done something really heinous, even though they've served their time, maybe they're out for good behavior, there's still this feeling of needing to punish myself, limiting myself, not allowing myself to actually experience the juice of life. I don't deserve it. I heard an interview with Albert Speer, who was Hitler's architect, designed all the buildings, also designed the death camps. And he was close to, I think he was in his late 70s, early 80s at the time. He was basically, living somewhere under house arrest. He couldn't go anywhere. He was out of prison, but he was still, And it was a fascinating conversation. The man never smiled the entire time. Mm. They asked him a bunch of questions about all of it, and very painfully he kind of gave a lot of details. And they'd asked him if he was, how he felt about it. He says, "Well, I've come to terms with it. I understand how that happened. I understand how I got into that state of mind." And then the interviewer said, "Are you happy?" He said, "Happy? I will never be happy."
Oh.
Now, this is the kind of energy. Now, that's a vow. I will not be happy.
Right.
And he could possibly carry that unless somebody comes along to help them work through that, to get back to that place of original innocence, and assign the blame where it belongs, and just the conditioning, the brainwashing, all of that. Make that separation take place. Otherwise, it'll go lifetime after lifetime. Those vows are so deep they will continue through multiple lifetimes. But in his position, he sees himself as being someone who can't allow himself to be happy or enjoy anything because of the fear of what he might do.
Oh. What he's capable of, and he felt
what he's
that
capable of. It's like the people I've worked with PTSD, combat veterans, which I've worked with EFT. And they all do the same thing. They go shopping in the middle of the night because they're afraid of what they might do.
Oh, I see.
Some sound triggers them and they go off and they've just hurt somebody or killed somebody because it had been so ingrained into them and they lived that way for so long that they don't know what's going to set them off. And so they just completely withdraw from the world. One of my greatest joys was getting somebody finally to, he told me at one of the meetings, I actually went to the movies during the day.
Aww.
For him, that was the first time in 40 years.
Wow. Oh.
He was a Vietnam War vet.
And that's when that's being able to drink the juice of life, which you said.
Yes.
And there's when you said that about triggers and reactions, and I love you said assign the blame where it belongs, which is whether it's conditioning, whether it's cultural environment or passed on, and this is something that's so many things. Many addicts of anything. When you said shopping, I actually thought you were going to go shopping at, but you meant that was just an activity. But some people say, you know what, I can't have a credit card because I'll gamble or spend or do this, or I can't be around a smoker because then I'll
that's a common one.
Yeah. And that you could be embarrassed. Like, I'm embarrassed that I don't have the willpower, or that you don't even know. You said something about taking it on with lives and lives and lives. Like, as in, did you mean we could, if we came back in another life, that could be with us still? That vow.
There'll be a vow. I cannot be happy. Yes, I will not be happy. It will be there.
And so how do you undo that vow or transmute it?
It is the most tenacious and the most difficult one to undo of all of the things that you deal with in inner reconciliation or tapping. Very, very gently, the person has to be brought to the place where they can be open to the possibility that they have an innate goodness, and that is what will keep them from doing that they do not need the vow anymore.
Oh, that was so good.
Because if anybody who's ever been in that position, right, and a lot of us have, if the only way I could guarantee I would not do that again was to deny myself whatever it is I'm going to deny, it's worth the price. That's a very deeply moral and spiritual place to be. And in fact, it is powerful enough that desire, that willingness to surrender it, is the seed of the wisdom that allow you to surrender the vow and no longer be afraid of repeating it.
I surrender the vow. Oh my gosh, we must do a show on that right now. I'm writing it down. Surrender the vow. And I love that you said surrender. You're not breaking the vow, which is a horrible thing, right? It sounds bad already. You're not just re-editing, rewriting
well, that's the point.
it.
It's a vow. It's a sacred vow. You can't break it. You have to be let out of it.
Let out.
It has to. You have to see it served its purpose, and you do not need that anymore in order to be truly good. You discover your inherent innocence.
When you say I'm thinking about vows now, because beliefs, it's like they're not. A vow is it's like the epitome of a belief. And when I'm thinking of being embarrassed, on the very lightest form, I was embarrassed, it went against something that who I believed I was. I imagined myself to be this, and then, I got embarrassed because that wasn't who I thought I was, or other people thought I was. But this is the vow is like, now we're into shame. That's where it gets a little deeper and heavier.
Well, it's even the shame when when you betray an aspect of yourself you've been trying to keep hidden.
Yes, yeah.
That's more shame. An embarrassment can simply be a social faux pas, and if there's a lot of sense of inadequacy and wanting to stay invisible, it will sting very deeply. For others, they can just kind of blow it off. Well, that was stupid. Right, and it's not a big deal. For others, it can be a big deal. Depends on how much it hooks in to our sense of inadequacy and our desire to stay invisible. And we want to hide a lot of things from others. Oftentimes, like the TV preacher who gets caught with the prostitute, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a complete and total discrediting of everything they've purported to be.
Yes, discrediting.
Which means they weren't what they were purporting themselves to be. And that would be something that they should look at very, very carefully. and not just see it, oh, I made a mistake and God forgave me. No, you didn't, buddy. No.
Right.
You're lying.
I'm glad you said that word. Describe. Sorry, that's a huge word. How do we know when? Okay, so describe. So somebody had a life, maybe they led that criminal life, or maybe they were not nice. Or maybe I don't know, horrible things, but light and fluffy to shoplifting to something else. And now maybe they are a priest. I don't know. But are they just, how do we know which one we really are? If we've changed, if we've hopefully, it's because we've evolved or improved, but how do we know when we are just hiding something? Like, we don't need to announce to the world that we had this past, but how do we know when we are discrediting or versus, no, I'm truly this person?
Well, yeah, that takes a genuine soul searching and self-inquiry. Right.
Yes.
We have to learn how to see through our own bullshit. It's that simple. And nobody bullshits us better than we do.
Right.
We're hiding ourselves from ourselves. And again, the bullshitting is not, it's not like a learned skill. It's natural to the nervous system. It's constantly trying to hide what it believes to be unacceptable to the tribe.
Yes.
And so it has to adopt behaviors that aren't authentic, personas that are not authentic, because that's how you survive. Because if the real you gets out early on, you'll be rejected. I mean, this is how the whole thing happens. You're just being yourself. The tribe rejects it. So being yourself becomes dangerous, and immediately you are suppressing your real behavior. You're creating an inauthentic behavior because you have to. This is all happening without your participation, by the way. Oh. And it's so well ingrained that by the time you do get to the place where you're potentially capable of consciously addressing it, there's nobody around to tell you that that's what's happening. Everybody's reinforcing exactly the same thing because they're all living in the same diluted bubble. But eventually, if you're fortunate, the teacher, the book, or something comes along and says, guess what? You're not who you think you are. None of this is you. And some will go, really? Please, tell me more. Others will reject you. No, are you kidding? Oh, this is me. Oh, that's just airy-fairy spiritual stuff or the like. But everybody gets to the point, at some point in their lifetimes, where the door cracks open a bit, and this message begins to sink in. You're not broken. It's not your fault. You are not who you think you are.
That's absolutely beautiful. I want to take that opportunity right there is to invite anybody listening right now who GP does work with people one-on-one, and it doesn't always have to be in a group or just getting a course. I mean, you might really need to talk with someone, and like what you just said perfectly, the teacher will show up and you need to hear from somebody privately, on your own. If this is something you are experiencing, you're embarrassed or you're feeling the shame, you do need to hear that clearly and directly to you that you are not who you think you are, and to work through this. And I love that you brought up about, I don't know that program yet, which I'm going to be asking you about it. The energy moving it through about those vows and being let out of them and surrendering to that vow. So I really want to invite anybody to, if they're feeling anything, just reach out to us. You can write, you can do just your basic one at questions@gpwalsh.com. Which that's probably the best place right now. Or if you just want to even just like kind of poke your head into our group at GP Walsh. Oh no, yes, GP Walsh, the spiritual teacher, the Facebook group. I can kind of check around, look around, and and then private message from there as well. I want everybody to have that opening and that invitation where they can, because like literally this topic today, from embarrassment to shame, really can go to anything, because we all have different vows with ourselves.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the number one vow is I have to keep up the appearance that how I appear to be to the tribe.
Right.
That's where they start. And of course, when the entire tribe betrays you, is in the case like Albert Speer. Mm-hmm. The tribe was psychotic.
Yes. Yeah.
But you wouldn't know it because it dominated.
Yes.
We see the same thing happening now. We see the same kind of psychosis attack happening now, that despotic tendency in the human mind, is still there. It has not been eradicated. Right?
Mm-hmm. It's just been controlled.
It just has a more civilized face on it.
Yes,
but
very well
but
said.
It's a lie.
Yeah. So everybody, we'd like to help you assign the blame where it belongs. So get in touch with us.
That's right. Mom.
And yes.
If it's not one thing, it's your mother.
There you go. And that's the end all. But as always, guys, tune in every Tuesday. And if you do have a question, you can always call in and ask it live. You can ask it on the questions at gpwalsh.com or join the group. All those beautiful things. Sign up for the light letter. And GP Walsh and myself, Lisa Berry, just look forward to coming here every week so that we can just hopefully help everybody start their self-inquiry process and journey. Thanks, GP.
Thank you, Lisa.
Bye, everyone.